see if this works here.
And you saw the one I did earlier. It's gonna be, well, it's a different crowd and
Yeah.
more different anyway.
Yep. Okay. So this looks like it's working. This is working. Yep. Okay. Everybody. It looks like we're good. We're just gonna put this on mute. Boom. Cool.
There's that. It says that you're Steven DeVos.
Yeah, it does say I'm Steven DeVos. I'd love to have his biceps, but
And
that's.
we all know you're not.
I'm gonna go fix that. Rename Danny Bossa, and I'll even do the pleasure of renaming yours to Jean-Francois Tremblay. So, hey everybody, Danny Bossa from the TRT and Hormone Optimization YouTube channel. My special guest today, Jean-Francois Tremblay from CanLab. How you doing, Jean-Francois?
I'm very good. Thank you.
We're also joined by a little friend I got this morning when I woke up. So we're gonna be three in this Zoom.
Oh, what is that?
What's a zit? It's a TRT induced zit.
Now that you pointed out, I won't be able to look to anything else. Right?
No, you can't see anything else.
It's
There you go. So, guys, for anyone not familiar with Jean-Francois, he is an ongoing student of UQAM, Université de Québec.
No,
Université de Montréal à Québec.
No, I'm not there anymore. Come on,
No?
I quit a while ago, a couple of years.
Okay.
Yeah. That's outdated.
I thought you were still kind of working with them and doing what else.
No. Even the lab now, we went private. It's all outside.
Okay.
Private stuff.
Everybody forget what I just said. You can edit it later. Oh shit, it's live. He's been studying peptides and SARMs since I believe it was the 90s.
Well, end of
90s. So he's been studying the peptides and SARMs for a very, very, very long time. And today we are having a topic that is somewhat off topic and somewhat on topic. This video is for the biohackers out there that like to experiment with peptides. And we're going to be speaking of a specific peptide called LL-37, which apparently has a lot of benefits in fighting COVID and even has effect on people even getting vaccinated for COVID. So we're going to be going through the medical literature and the studies that have been done on it to date, whatever information that Jean-Francois has to offer. Jean-Francois, if you want to just, for the newcomers that aren't really familiar with what peptides are, just a fast blurb on what they are.
Okay, very fast. They are small molecules made of only amino acids. So from one amino acid we call an amino acid. If you link two of them or more, then it becomes a peptide. So officially it's from 2 to 50 amino acids. It's peptides. But there are peptides that are technically not called peptides, like that have more amino acids. So it's but basically that's what it is. That's all. And most of the peptides I care about, actually, that I've been studying and investigating, interested in, are naturally occurring in our body. Our body makes thousands and thousands of them. We know of more than 7,000 already that we make, but we believe there is more, closer to 250,000 peptides different that our body makes every day to part of our processes. Yeah.
So a lot of the peptides you guys may have heard of are stuff like BPC117, thymosin beta 1, thymosin alpha 1,
beta 4,
MOTC, beta 4. Some of these peptides are unbelievably amazing at improving the speed at which you heal. So if you've got some kind of an injury, taking stuff like thymosin or BPC-157 oftentimes cuts healing in half. This is something I've tried many times. I've had numerous little injuries from training, tendonitis, pulled muscles, whatever. You take that, and it's like kind of like Wolverine, maybe not to that extent, but you heal up a hell of a lot faster than before. There's peptides for tanning. There's peptides for a number of things, libido and everything else. But this one is really going to be for this specific peptide here, because COVID is a big thing in the news right now, or has been for a very long time. So, Jean-Francois, tell me a little bit about this particular peptide that.
Well, it's a peptide. First, as a peptide, it's not one that you're going to hear about a lot mainstream, so to say, like the other ones you mentioned, because it has specific activities that are not proper to or applicable to most people in general, unless you get a specific condition. They fall more into the specialized therapeutic applications of certain conditions. But basically, it's a peptide that our body produce. It occurs naturally, and its activity, it's anti-inflammatory. It's not the best, but it does that. But what it does really good, it's antimicrobial and anti viral, like in
Okay.
virus. So it was studies. Okay, and our body secretes it mostly in the lining of the intestine when needed, and in all the mucosis of the respiratory system, the lungs, the bronchi. That's where it's mostly produced when needed.
And most peptides are produced in the stomach lining, from my understanding, right?
No, not BPC-157 is, but like the thymosin you mentioned, they're thymosin. So they all have different. Some we have no clue where they're made. We know they exist because we see them, but some we don't even know exactly where they're made, but we know they're there. So this one is a places, and we knew for a long time it was antiviral. Actually, there are studies showing its efficacy with even AIDS, to see improvements. And there is one study actually I wasn't aware of with on AIDS, but Carla Nori this morning brought it up, and like basically would stop the cure AIDS with that peptides, but part of a protocol. So we knew that. So about a year and a half ago, when the pandemic started, some protocols were proposed, preventive protocols and even therapeutic protocols, and LL-37 was included. It was thymosin beta-4, thymosin alpha-1, LL-37, and pantozan. You know what some athletes use for joint relief? It's a veterinarian stuff, but
Okay.
again, I always say if it's good for $1 million, or it's good for me. So, so it's widely used by athletes. And LL-37, it was thrown in that mix for its antiviral effect. But what brought about actually the interest of many people, including you, that's why we're doing this, is that a study in April came out about, now they found out why exactly where it gets its activity from. And it turns out that it's directly related. First, it's directly related to your vitamin D levels. Vitamin D converts to the 125 version of the
Hmm.
metabolite, which is
Hmm.
the active form in your
Hmm.
body, and that's the one. By the way, when you get tested for vitamin D, that's the actual one you should get the numbers for to know how it goes. And as you know, vitamin D uh, is a epigenetic factor. I mean, it triggers, turn on and off, literally genes. Uh, Hundreds of them. And one of the genes it turns on is a gene that it's the genes that will make LL-37. Well, down the stream, it's not a direct, there is a cleavage of a bigger molecule and LL-37. But the LL-37 is produced through the turning on of a gene. So it's, and vitamin D does that. So now, and as I speak, everything I say, always keep in mind to have seen, vitamin D. It's shown to be very protector of against COVID, and now you know why. It's the downstream effect of that peptide, and the effect of that peptide, and that's what that study showed in April, is that it's a double action. First, it cloaks the receptor on your cells, literally making the spikes of the virus invisible. So, or it cannot attach to your cells to inject, so to say, its genetic load. And two, it inactivate the spikes on the virus. So it's like that it comes, and that's the beauty of the human body and its processes. Many times come with a backup system. So if the first one failed, the other one will work. So it's kind one. It comes with a little backup system. It says, okay, if it didn't bind well to the spikes, we're still shielding the receptors, or vice versa. So we get both. So there is a couple of image you could post now or later. I don't know. Could you do it now if I send them to you? How do you do that?
You could. I've never used
Because
that,
I
but
know I don't know. I know you can share a screen,
yeah, you can share something.
but then I would have to dig them. Well, we could do it.
Share screen. Who can share?
Uh,
Oh, here, I can set it to all panelists. So now you have the option to share your screen if you'd like.
okay.
At the
But
complete bottom, there's a share screen, and then you
yeah,
click on it, and then you can choose which.
because too, if there was a chat thing, would everybody would see what is in the chat?
Maybe not.
Because in the chat,
Worst
yeah.
case, you can email them to me, and I'll share my screen.
Oh, no. Okay. What I'll do is let me dig it for a minute.
Okay.
Let me dig the images, because when you see it,
You understand.
it's kind of more and so far that's interesting, of course, because now okay, vitamin D is good. We knew that, so there isn't really anything new. But me, when I saw that, I suddenly became very excited about something. Um, okay, this is not it. Okay, here we are. It's going to be two images, share screen. Ah, nice.
So you pick the screen you want, or the window
Okay,
you want to share.
share.
There you go.
Okay, so you have two
Beautiful.
images there. Now we're looking at the one on the left,
Mhm.
where you see, all the peptide LL-37 blocks the spikes,
Mhm.
and you can see here it cloak literally the receptor, so it makes it very effective. And here on the right, you see, the vitamin D, 125 OH, D, the gene transcription, cathelicidin.
I'm not seeing that one, the vitamin D.
Okay. So let me
Ah.
see all those new technology. Okay, here, share. Now you must see it.
There we go.
Okay, and you see downstream,
Mhm.
and that's from another study that shows that actually there are factors that make the LL-37 not active. And that study in particular was on air pollution, and particularly the micro particle of carbon. So what you
Okay.
would get in anything that's burning.
Okay. So this is making me ask a few questions now. So so in the previous picture, you were saying that it helps to cloak the receptors so that
Hmm.
when the virus does come in, it can't quite find the ideal places for it to attach,
Yeah, it doesn't
more or
see
less.
it,
It
so
doesn't
to
see
say.
it. So it just floats around, doesn't necessarily attach, and just probably dies off. Now, if this peptide is made naturally and is being made by vitamin D,
By the trigger, but vitamin D triggers it. Yeah, but
triggers it. So would simply increasing vitamin D intake be sufficient to have enough of this peptide to fully
yeah,
protect yourself, or
yeah,
would you?
in many instances. But that's the thing. If and that's why when you think now about what I'm gonna say in terms of what's happening or what has happened, it makes a lot of thing. It makes sense because as you see, even if you have the LL-37 is produced, but you live somewhere where there is high level of contamination, then it's gonna inactivate the LL-37 and it's not gonna work. So it's probably one of the reason you see, because people they think, okay, higher population, easier to spread and all that. But another factor to that is like cities like New York, Los Angeles, or countries like India that are highly contaminated. You see bigger outbreaks than in other places because
So
yeah, you
would
would
it,
think India, they have sun, they're in the sun all the time, they should be okay with their vitamin D, but it's so contaminated, that country, that you look and you say, well, huge amount of outbreaks.
but then we also have the dark-skinned people having less absorption of vitamin D than lighter-skinned people. So that could be
Production, yeah, their capacity. Well, but
to
usually
absorb
the
from the
color
sun.
of the skin, it's adapted to, it's an adaptation, basically, uh, to that. If you live in a part of the world that is a lot of sun all the time, then you have a darker skin to protect you from the bad, the UV rays that can be, basically it
Mhm.
alter your DNA. So
'Cause I was reading that blacks in general, they're often vitamin D deficient even if they spend time in sun because their dark skin prevents them from absorbing the
yeah,
vitamin D
they
from the
they, they
sun
figure
compared
it's,
to people that are very white. Apparently, they absorb vitamin D like crazy
yeah, but then they burn.
and they burn, and then they get
See,
the skin cancer
that's the
anyway.
thing. Because if you use sunscreen when you go out, you stop your capacity to make vitamin D. So a tan by itself, it's not an indicator of, you could spend all day long in the sun, get an amazing tan because you use a nice sun tanning lotion, a protection lotion. But if it's you use like SPF 30, well, probably you produced enough vitamin D to run for 20 minutes, something like that.
Right.
You understand? And black people, they have they evaluated their SPF level to be between maybe 12 and 20, depending
Okay.
of the color. So they have that natural protection, and yes. So, but that's why you look at all those factors. and you come to you see that happening.
So you're raising vitamin D, that'll create more of the peptide. And if you live in a very
And
clean environment, the peptide may remain activated,
yeah, but
but in
that's
areas
okay.
with it
But
might get deactivated.
that's very right. But that's not the only factor. Now, that's not my specialty. But if you look at all the factors that can make you not make the 125 OH version, and they are, because, for example, there are people, listen, they could be taking 10,000 units a day, but for some reason you measure their vitamin D, that metabolite, and it's very low. So it could be because of, again, it's not my expertise, so I don't want to go forward with that, but could be, I don't know, an enzyme necessary for the conversion that is not working well. I know nutritional factor, so many things that could affect it, and that does affect it. So that's one thing. But yeah, take your vitamin D or go in the sun. That's great, but it doesn't ensure your protection at 100%. Even if we know all that. So, in terms of again of a pandemic, depending where you live, what you do, and all that, maybe at some point you could supplement with LL-37. The nice part is preventively, we know that COVID-19 is an airborne virus, right? It's going to enter by your respiratory tract, and that study actually was done with intranasal spray of the peptide. When they did it, not that study, another one that shows the efficacy. So it was just a nasal spray, and it was like all that was happening, the blocking of the spikes and cloaking and everything. So it's
Is the nasal spray as effective as the standard injection
in
route?
that case, it's better because you hit directly where it happens. Because see that blocking of the spike and cloaking of the cells, that happen as soon as the virus comes in your lungs. So it's not inside, it's still outside, so to say, where the air comes in and out in the lungs, and the mucosis. So yeah, I would say in that case it's even more effective because it's a direct application of the peptide where you want it. It's not an injection where it's going to have to find, and maybe where some will be lost on the way. Not lost like lost, but it has activity other places. So let's say that it's on its it reaches the bloodstream, it goes around, and suddenly it goes through, part of it goes through the bloodstream of your intestine, and say, whoa, we're needed here too. So some of it will have activity there, more molecule will continue to your lung. You want to actually would have more punch if you use it intranasal preventively, where it comes in. And what I've seen done, actually, it's an intranasal, which is amazingly easy to make. You can get the empty intranasal bottles on Amazon. You use saline, bacteriostatic saline water, dissolve your peptide in there. And there is another product that is sold, and they made a study on their product, and it has been shown to kill more than 90% of the COVID-19 virus that comes in through your respiratory tract. So that would be like a double protection. It's the same thing now what they use in toothbrush as an antibacterial. It's xylitol, which is amazingly cheap. What we use to sugar coffees and stuff like that. So it turns out that it makes the virus inactive too. So you use both of them. You have double protection. A little spray there once or twice a day, and you're fully protected. I would say again, it's not proven, it's just sense, but I would actually think you're more protected than with the vaccine. So,
YouTube's gonna take this shit down so fast. So
no,
when you're taking the peptide, you're saying if you're taking vitamin D will create it, but if your body is somewhat polluted due to environmental toxins, whatever, the peptide could get inactivated. So are
exactly.
you saying that if you're supplementing with the peptide, you're supplementing with an activated form of the peptide,
Well,
which will have a chance to act
see
way
that's
before it gets a chance to get
the
inactivated?
thing. I believe that if you use nasal spray, then the concentration of the peptide will be higher. So some of it could still be inactivated, but some will not. It's
You'll
share,
have enough that is
and
activated.
enough will make it. And that's why I would throw in xylitol with it, so to get that just in case thing. And just in case too, that even if you take your fish oil, your vitamin D or fish oil, or you eat a good diet and all that, but just in case that conversion to the active metabolite is not that efficient, um, then you just do it, and again, it's not invasive like an injection. It's very easy to apply. Okay, let's say you are to go on a trip. You have to take a plane. You are afraid. People. Yeah, they wear masks, but the closeness and the planes are pretty safe actually because it's negative pressure. So it's aspirated.
So
It's
something you can take as I wanted a little extra boost of protection during this
exactly,
short period
or
of time.
anywhere you go in a crowd, and just take one spray just before, and you're actually covered for LL-37 half life is around 4 hours. So that means its active protection is more than 4 hours. Because half life, you have half left, so there is still plenty left to
Mhm.
protect you. The downside of it, don't go crazy with LL-37 because it turns out that molecule has some cytotoxic activity, and if you take too much, you may start to feel that effect. People who take too much, let's say for intestinal problem, it's injected them, and they think that more is better. Well, they find out very, very fast that more is not better in that
Right.
case.
So this is something like the lines of taking well, just to make a simple analogy, taking extra strength Advil, and they say take two, don't take more than two. If you take six, uh, it's not good for you.
Yeah,
And
for
then if you do
example.
that every hour, it's gonna cause some harm. So just
Exactly. So
respect the dose and respect the peptide.
yeah, and so that's it. Now the interesting part, and what really got me interested, I know so far, it's interesting intellectually and a bit practically. Now we know why vitamin D is important, how the peptide works, but now it's speculative. It what I'm going to say now falls in the realm of educated guess, but I'm sure you'll see my reasoning. A lot of people don't take, and it's not, I'm not take it or don't take it. I'm just stating the fact, and with those facts, you make your decisions. But a lot of people won't take the vaccines because they're afraid of the side effects, right? And we know now that the side effects of the vaccines, the mRNA vaccines, just to explain people what it does. Basically, uh, let me go back to the other image. Oh, you know what? I'll share both here. So the one on the left, you see the virus with the spike, and it's actually the presence of those spikes that trigger the immune response. So now Dr. Maloney back then theorized, and people they took his findings, and they developed it that if you inject the I'm using French, so you know it's inverted letter.
Dis-le en français, je vais traduire.
C'est l'ARN messager, so it's
RNA.
RNA. You say it's opposite order, but only the spike. Then you will trigger the immune response. But of course, it's not attached to the virus. So there is no transcription factor, because what the virus does, it's full of its own full RNA. And what it does, it's literally through the ACE2 receptor, it injects its own RNA within your cell where it will reproduce and duplicates, and then bang, the cell die explodes, and then you have millions more. And if it's very viral, your immune system cannot deal with it, well, you die. So they figured, okay, let's just give to the body the part of the RNA that will make the body produce the spike, not the whole virus with the full RNA. So the immune response will be triggered without an actual infection of the full RNA of the virus. And in theory, it looks beautiful. But what they didn't foresee in that case is that when you inject a vaccine, usually what we knew is that you inject it usually in the shoulder, and that immune reaction you trigger, it's produced in the shoulder. It doesn't go nowhere else. It's all happening there. And it lasts not so long, maybe a few hours, and bang, that's all you needed. So not to those people, to make sure it would work good, they encapsulated the RNA of they want to transmit in a micro liposomal capsule, which makes it slow release. So it takes 10 to 14 days to fully release those RNA to produce. That's why they say if you take the vaccine, be careful if you have anything happening in the first 14 days, because that's the time of its activity. What they didn't expect, and now we know because it's kind of a leaked study that came out of Pfizer that showed, and we kind of figure it out, that those microcapsules, liposomal, they leak out of the injection site and they go to other places. They go to the heart, they go to the brain, they go to other organs. And then the RNA, the message to make the spikes is produced locally in those organs. Part of that happening is inflammation. So of course you don't want huge inflammation in the heart, much less in the brain. So that's where you see all those side effects happening, and sometimes really bad. They didn't expect that. So me, I got all excited because I thought, hey, LL-37 bind to the spikes that produce that inflammation once you produce them within, either it's from the virus or produced by the vaccine. So it just makes sense that the LL-37 will have that spike blocking activity. So it's going to block the spikes from the vaccine too. You understand where I'm going with that?
Yeah. So what you're saying is
basically that would be a protection against those unwanted side effects of the vaccine. And
it would probably make the vaccine just kind of pointless in a way.
Well, I wouldn't say no, because I still think it will produce the immune response. Because the same way, let's say somebody has it makes the virus inactive, but it doesn't make the virus or the spike invisible to the immune system, meaning that the body will still see it as and will develop the immune response to it.
Okay.
So now the point is, okay, all those inflammation and bad things happening, is it because of the mere presence of the spikes, or is it because of the binding capacity of those spike? Either the virus is attached to it or not.
Mhm.
That's the thing. But what I see is that at least you block the activity of those spikes, and it's probably that, because otherwise they wouldn't give you only the spikes
Right.
to get that activity. So they found out that the immune system respond to the spike, and probably you would still get the immune response. Why? Because you will need to be amazingly lucky to block 100% of the spikes all the time. But I have a tendency to believe that it would mitigate the those side effects, those inflammatory effects from that expression of the spikes to happen in other organs.
So, okay. So just so we're something clear up here, clear something up here.
Hmm.
Would the LL-37 peptide simply cloak the ACE2 receptors, preventing the spike protein from attaching to the receptor, or does it also have a direct impact on the spike protein? Just so we're clear there.
Both. It does both.
It does both. Okay. So what you were explaining about the DELT and its spreading, I've been reading and seeing a lot of that as well. No, we don't see any of that on mainstream media, but again, the approach was to get the vaccine in the DELT. And it was encapsulated, as we said, in that liposomal cell, goes in, basically tells the body how to create the spike protein. The spike protein is supposed to remain anchored in the DELT, and then the body would then rush to create antibodies in response to this spike protein in the DELT.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes sense. The issue now is that they are realizing that in some people, that spike protein doesn't necessarily stay in the DELT, winds up spreading throughout. So now, instead of it just remaining anchored in one spot in the muscle where there's no important organs, it winds up spreading and then starts anchoring in some of the organs. Then the body is creating antibodies, and some people it's even creating a type of an autoimmune response. So from the peptide would work against the virus itself. So I guess at the same time, for those people who are very fearful of this virus and want to take the vaccine and get the vaccine and on all that kind of stuff, you definitely don't want to take this.
Have to take the vaccine because either because of peer pressure,
Yeah,
work, you want to keep their job, travel, whatever. Society is found way to pressure people to take it.
Yeah. So if you're the type of person that you believe in this vaccine and you want to take the vaccine, then definitely do not take this peptide. For those who were pressured into taking the vaccine, or they took it and now they're starting to be afraid of side effects by taking this peptide, what you're saying would actually mitigate the effects of the vaccine to an extent in regards to sides, without necessarily reducing, well, maybe partially reducing, but not completely reducing the autoimmune, the antibody formation. Correct? So you would still create
Correct.
some of the
And
antibodies?
LL-37 has another activity I didn't mention before, but it has immune system modulation effects to a bit like thymosin alpha-1, not to the same extent. So all in all, you would get that dampening of that strong immune response too.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about somebody who actually was tested positive for COVID, is experiencing, some of the health issues related to COVID? Would taking this peptide help to
Oh yeah,
more
a lot.
significantly reduce the time that the body takes
Yeah,
to
of
get rid of
course.
it? Okay.
Yeah, 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 yeah. This one and a couple of other ones that we know clinically are amazingly good and fast acting. So that
Because
yeah, you
if you have COVID and then you go say, "Well, I got it, so let me go get the vaccine," it's kind of late, right? But if you were to
it's
take
a bit late. Yeah.
if you were to take this peptide in response, say, "Oh God, I found I got COVID and I'm starting to not feel well,"
Hmm.
taking this
Without yeah a lot.
would help a lot.
But in that case, I would then myself. I wouldn't go through the nasal spray. I would go straight to the injection because now it's spread all,
Because now it's already entered the respiratory tract and now it's
yeah,
gone off and
inside your
got
body.
it.
Yeah.
Um, what we can do is you can feel free to email me the studies that you saw, and I'll get
Oh yeah.
Stephen to post the links to the studies in the description of the video if you have links. If you just got the PDFs, I might not be able to post that unless I create a kind of a shared drive or something. But if you
Yeah,
have
I'll
links
send
to
the
them,
links and I'll make sure to send links that give access to
yeah.
the full articles.
So what's you know in the nasal spray when you're taking it a few times a day, what's the dose per?
Well, by experience of years of using that peptide by clinicians for various conditions and that too now, usually I wouldn't go higher than 200 micrograms for small people or women. Small woman, small people. I'm just gonna say people now, so I won't offend anybody. And up to maybe 300 microgram for big people.
Big people.
Yeah, I'm learning to be politically correct.
I don't think I'll ever learn that skill. I'm sorry. I am who I am.
No, no, it's great. Well, I'm saying that sarcastically. So
Yeah. Um, so so 200, and this is the nasal spray, and in injections, is there a
yeah,
difference in?
so injection, I would split the dose in two injections daily, let's say 100 to 150 micrograms twice a day. Nasal spray, well, you need to make calculations how much you get in one spray and make sure you don't go crazy with, don't pass the total number of spray you can do in a day.
So is the 200 to 300, is that kind of like your daily total? So if you're
Daily
taking a
total.
spray,
Yeah,
you
that's
would
right.
take 4 shots of 50 or
Of like for example, or six if you're bigger people. But
okay.
again, it's all in how much water you put in the spray bottle, how much peptide you put in it, then and all those spray bottles you get, even those cheap ones on Amazon, they're set to spray. It's 0.12 milliliters per spray. So you do all your little
Your math,
calculation,
yeah,
rule of three, have that
right.
much in that many milliliters. So how much do I have in 0.12? And
You got a vial of any peptide anywhere on your desk, just for the people that are like, I don't know
do
what this
I
peptide is.
do I have? Are you surprised? I do.
No,
Actually, it's of that peptide, and that was
there you
not
go.
planned. It's I don't know if you see it well.
Yeah,
That's
so you guys see it's a little vial. At the bottom, you see that it's kind
it's
of little white powder.
yeah. This is
So
it.
for people that are doing injections, they add bacteriostatic water to this vial and they mix it up. The powder dissolves into the bacteriostatic
And that's
water.
one of the nasal spray you can make yourself.
Okay. So if anybody's familiar with taking HCG as an example, you're adding water to HCG is also kind of a peptide. This is the same thing. You add a given amount of water based on how much you want to dose per day and so on. And that's kind of it there. Um, any sides? I know with peptides is pretty almost non-existent sides unless you're
If you
getting those
don't
really big doses.
have any other underlying conditions, and you don't use more than those dosages, no, I wouldn't do it for too long because, for example, again, if it's intranasal, you don't need to worry so much, but injected, uh, a few years ago, well, years ago, we thought it was good to, we thought that for the intestinal flora, that we thought it was specific, killing only the bad bacteria. But no, it kills all the bacteria, good or bad. So it's not that specific. And there has been people taking it for too long, and they actually damage their intestinal flora. The same thing you would going on a heavy course of antibiotics.
Okay.
So you have to be careful. So if some people are a bit sensitive at that level, then they may see that as a side effect, that disruption in the um, but I'm talking long term, taking for more than a month, 2 months nonstop.
Right.
Um, so, but overall, no, it's a friendly peptide if you respect it. Okay, it's a peptide that it's Carl who came up with that term for that. It's a peptide you need to respect. Keep indications, and you won't have a problem. But don't.
And at that dose you were specifying, the 200 to 300 daily, that can be taken
It's
for how
well,
long a period of time?
if it's okay, well, okay, I'm gonna do my coming out
I'm,
here.
I'm, I'm using this as an example of, you take the
When
extreme
when
guy
I
who's
found out
paranoid
about
about it.
that, then I did get the vaccine, and actually I'm like 10 days in of my first shot, and I'm gonna take it for 20 days. No, just to be on the safe side. And when I'm gonna do my second shot, I'm gonna do the same thing from the day I get the vaccine, 20 days. That's pretty much this. And we know that the span of time where if something bad is to happen, it's gonna happen there. So you protect yourself during those 20 days.
So the goal is to protect yourself against the spike protein potentially going elsewhere
Yeah,
and
because
causing
it
damage
doesn't
elsewhere.
stay there forever. Our RNA is not meant to live forever. It's another protein. It will, well, the only reason it lasts that long, it's encapsulated. Otherwise, it lasts only, I don't know what's the half life of, but it's short. It's another signaling molecule. When it gave the signal, you don't need it anymore. So it degrades,
Mhm.
and that's it. So it's a few minutes to a few hours at most. But the fact it lasts so long in that particular case, it's that encapsulation thing.
Gotcha. So is this something I'm assuming is something you manufacture at CanLab as well?
Oh, we've been for years.
Oh, you've been making it for years. It's just that
Yeah, yeah,
now
yeah,
the
because
research
it
has come
has a
out.
lot of good application. And I say, oh, well, we have it. Look at this. Lucky me.
Okay. And is it a relatively easy peptide to create in comparison to others? More
No,
complex to
it's
create?
it's normal. It's not a small one, but it's not a big. It's a normal one. It's
Somewhat normal.
takes about maybe a week to sensitize.
Gotcha. So if anybody's not familiar with Jean-François is the owner of CanLab, you can visit canlabsciences.com. That too will add a link in the description. And we're both in Montreal, Canada, so Canadians can purchase it. US, I know there's a number of countries that peptides are just not permitted whatsoever. Um, which parts of the world can you sell to?
Well, to the U.S., I have no. It's okay. Most Latin America countries like Mexico and all that, and down, no, it doesn't. They have funny border controls. Except I did send to Dominican Republic, and it went through. Puerto Rico it does because it's the U.S. I think in the some little islands too in the Caribbean, but generally, if they speak Spanish, it doesn't go through. For some reason, Spain it doesn't go through. I don't know.
Gotcha.
Uh, but in Europe, some countries yes, some countries no. But that we're getting a local distributor there this summer. So
Okay.
and Asia, no problem. Australia, no. New Zealand, yes. It's weird.
It's really
Uh,
depends country to country.
okay, like in Europe, you know that because even if it's European community and all that, they still every country has its own customs. So you look at two countries, you would think because of the language and the culture and everything. I'm talking about Germany and Austria. You would think it's the same. Well, it turns out that it goes in Austria, but it doesn't go in Germany.
Gotcha.
It's weird like that. So
So with this peptide, and now just to fall outside of COVID for a sec, but in what other circumstances would someone say, "Hey, I got to get my hands on some of this peptide because I have X and X issue"? Just any type of, they picked up a virus, they picked up, they got the flu, they got sick
yeah,
with
yeah.
any type of
Actually, it would
viral.
work great for the flu. Actually, works great for any. Actually, all the virus that have. I don't know the details. I really looked at this one, but for example, the AIDS virus, it seems to work. Uh, any virus that use the ACE12 receptor to download its load, it would work.
Gotcha. So I'd have to look up which one those
Yeah,
are.
then you have to look up. Okay, does this one work or this one?
So now I'll have to pick up two vials, keep in my freezer, and
Well, if you're a
next time I get a
peptide,
viral infection, boom.
if you're a peptide believer, I
I'm
think there is
I'm convinced. I've been using them for a
no. I
while and
think
they
there is
work.
a little stock of some peptides you should keep for emergencies. In the freezer, they're going to be good for years, and just in case. And I'm talking like actual emergency, like a stroke. You would make the whole difference by uh, injecting some of those because some peptides are known to dissolve blood clots. So you could make a difference between next day not being able to talk to like, oh, nothing happened, like that strong effect just by that fast reaction to and there are peptides that are really really good for that. So
I always keep BPC anti-most, and I always have at least a vial of each. If I hurt myself, which has happened from time to time, boom, take some of
yeah,
that.
well,
And
and like thymosin alpha 1 have a couple of vials, you get an infection, bang. Because the sooner you act, it's like anything else, not only peptides, the sooner you act, the faster it's like that expression. I don't know if it's used in English, but you kill it in the egg, before it hatches and
mhm,
grows. So as
mhm,
soon as you detect it's happening, bang, you kill it.
right,
So that's why to have like fast response to some condition, a heart attack, thymosin beta 4 have been shown to repair the damaged tissues due to the ischemia of a blockage of the artery. The part of the heart then get well, it's going to help in dissolving what blocks it if it's a blood clot, and it's going to already start to to heal that damaged part of the heart. So when it's fixed, it's going to heal much faster.
mhm. Cool. Anything you want to add that we didn't go over?
Well, no, in terms of peptides, again, I did a podcast this morning about that exact same subject with Carl Lenore, and I know a lot of people are afraid of the vaccine, and I'm going to use the same examples because there was that, there is still there, professor at the university, and I struck a conversation with him uh, about omega-3, and you know how good they are, high dosages, you can do some little miracles with that. And I wanted to have his take on, because I think he was about to start a study on something with omega-3. And we spoke for about half an hour, and the conversation told me started with, oh, but which omega-3? Because there are so many of them. It goes much further than the uh, DHA and the other form, that's more for the brain, it's maybe 20, 30 forms. And he says some of them are really bad, and, blah, blah, blah. So he starts into that thing. After half an hour, I swear to God, I didn't take any fish oil for a month. I was scared.
Really?
Yeah. So I think, and we see, and I do believe there are side effects and things that can happen, but I think there is as much propaganda on one side now than on the other. Maybe it's a good thing, to balance things.
Yeah, the
But
problem is one side gets censored and the other side is all over the news. So
yeah, but nevertheless, I think we still have access to both sides if we want to. There is a middle ground where, yeah, both sides are right. It's all in a matter of perspective of things. I listened to Dr. Maloney, and I saw him talk about that like that professor talked about the omega-3. Is a clinician, is a researcher. So researchers have that tendency, they're kind of perfectionist. If they will have a tendency to look, because they don't want nothing bad to happen. So if there is anything that could go wrong and this and that, that's what they're going to bring out first. Because when you do a study, you want to control those things, or you want to see them in advance, and they want people to know that you're forcing them and all that. So it's very right what he's saying, but with his perspective. And then you have the company making it that has a very other perspective, but they're not wrong either. Again, there is that joke, I think I sent it to you, from Pfizer, you trusted us with your penis for many years, so now why don't you trust us with our vaccine? And it was not made by them, but it makes sense. Meaning, I could write a paper that, I swear to God, nobody will ever take their Viagra ever, because I'm going to scare the shit out of them. There have been deaths due to Viagra and very serious side effects. But it turns out that people, they kind of oversee it because they want the results. You understand? So it's a question of context and perspective. What I'm very against, again, it's that suppression of information. It's the fact that the obligation, it's not an obligation, but it's kind of is. That they push it on us, all the economic, that whole thing. And all those risk or no risk of the vaccine, it's actually, each side use their arguments, but the real thing is not at that level. And I believe a lot of people, they realize that, but many times they mix them.
The thing that I guess probably angers me most is you watch mainstream news and it's perfectly safe. It's perfectly safe. There's nothing to worry about. Nothing to worry about. Even Premier Legault, he's the leader of Quebec, is basically saying, I
Yeah,
don't get the hesitancy. It is absolutely safe. There's no issues. No one ever had an issue. Then you go in the forums and there's tens of thousands of people saying, I got Bell's palsy. I have lepra. We have currently now, just in our family, we know more people that got vaccine injured than got
yeah,
sick.
yeah. It
Like
does
leg
happen.
paralysis, Bell's palsy,
Yeah.
blood clot, an aunt that got her shots has been on oxygen ever since. We're seeing all these things. So to say, it's perfectly safe, I know that's BS.
No, it's
Then you
not.
look at the other, nothing's perfectly safe,
Nothing
yeah.
is perfect. Nothing. There,
But then everything from the other side, none of that gets ever spoken to on mainstream news. You have to be the biohackers or researchers or the inquisitive critical minds to go and say, I need to go look at everything to get a perspective of the whole, make an educated decision. If I was, a 75-year-old man with underlying conditions and I knew about this thing, like, yeah, if I get COVID, it's probably not going to be very good. So let me take this vaccine.
Yeah,
A
that's
guy
the
my
thing.
age and I'm
That
in
that
perfect health,
information that would
I
help
would weigh the
somebody
risks.
to make that decision is suppressed.
Yeah. And then you have the
See,
kids now that are going to get vaccinated. The WHO is saying young
and
people under 18 shouldn't.
that's where the real problem is, because at the end of the day, they don't want they suppress it because they want to sell the vaccine, because there are huge financial interest in it.
Yeah. So
And that's all, and manipulation and fear. I always remember I in a documentary about the CIA and all that, and the Twin Towers. And was it planned, or was it yeah, I think there is a middle ground there too. I think one of the tower was a terrorist attack, and I think the other one was a government planting. So you had both there.
Now the latest news articles
But
are
now the point is
non-vaccinated are variant factories. Now is the latest thing in the news.
that's the scare factor, and that's what I'm going at. The assistant director at the NSA at the time, I guess if it was a conspiracy by the government, she wasn't aware of it. But out of her heart, it came out, and she was quoted on that. When she saw it on TV, the first thing that came out of her mouth is, "Oh, now we have something to milk from for at least 15 years." And then, you understand, they saw that as an opportunity to infuse fear, to do what they wanted. And that's the real game. Now they use a virus, they use this. It's always, if it's not terrorist, they did a thing, un sondage, how do you say in English?
It's a survey.
A survey a few months after the Twin Towers, and they were asking people in America, if we put cameras in your bedroom, but giving you the guarantee that you would be fully protected, would you do it? More than 80% said yes, because the country was in a high state of fear. Fear, when you have a population in fear, you do what you want with them. That's a known fact. It's always Hitler, the fear of Jews. You need to instill fear. Read Machiavelli. It's not new. It's always.
Yeah. And then it's we're censoring to protect you. Don't protect me. I can protect myself. I want to see all the information, and then I'll make an educated decision based on the information, based on the evidence. But if you're going to hide the evidence from me and say you're doing it to protect me, I have a hard time with that. I don't have a ton of time, but there was one subject I feel to ask about, the theory of shedding.
Yeah, I see that's.
I've witnessed
much, but I've seen it.
Yeah, I've been seeing it myself in a number of cases. When I saw it the first time, I said it's a coincidence. Second time, third time, big coincidence. Now we're at about 12, 13 times of issues, and I'm like, this is getting to be a little bit more than coincidence. Maybe there's something there. So what do you know about that subject?
Well, I could be funny here and say, did you see the series on Netflix, The Manifest?
No,
It's easy. We're all connected.
we're connected.
No, actually, I have no clue. I know it's happening. You know, as you said, it's happening too much to be a coincidence. Physiologically, what could be happening could be anything like, well, you know that, for example, if you have high testosterone levels, your sperm will have higher content of actual testosterone. And it has been seen, women that suddenly have side effects of higher testosterone when they start to have intercourse with their partner that has higher levels. So there is a transfusion. So one possibility is that since those micro encapsulated RNA, they go everywhere. So maybe somehow they're transmitted through some fluids that you exchange. Is it that? I have no clue. It's hard.
I'm
I don't
seeing
know.
many of these cases simply by touch, by a vaccinated person touching an unvaccinated person, and within 24 hours there's a reaction.
Mm.
And I've just seen it so many times now, and people are gonna say, "Danny, you're full of shit. You're I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm
Yeah,
genuinely curious
and
as to what's
observing it.
happening because I'm observing it over and over and over, and it's like this can't be coincidence.
Yeah,
Now, if it is happening, what is the mechanism? What exactly is going on?
it's like right now I'm trying to look into. You know, some people who had COVID lost smell, right? The sense of
Mhm.
smell, and sometimes it doesn't. Well, so far it didn't. Because I have actually a friend of mine who's a doctor, prominent doctor in the U.S., and he's the one who put me on that. He said, "Look, it didn't come back, and it has been almost a year. And is there anything, peptide or?" But it's hard to tell if we don't know why, what was actually affected. And I have a sense, it's sad to say, but if it didn't come back after a year, it could be kind of permanent damage, or like not maybe that permanent, but it may take a long time to repair.
Mhm. Mhm.
But why is that particular sense is affected?
Don't know.
Many things we don't know.
Don't know. Don't know.
Mm.
Cool. I think that's about it.
I don't know.
Anything I didn't ask you?
That's life. Nobody asks questions. They cannot ask questions.
There's questions coming in. Some of them are kind of silly, even for my standards. Um, One guy says he can't believe you got the shot, but I see what your
Well,
approach was. Say, I'm going to get the shots, I can develop the antibodies, but then I'll take this peptide to mitigate the
well,
risk of side effects from the
and
vaccine.
I didn't take it. At the beginning I didn't want to take it, you know. But then I weighed everything, and I talked to many doctors, mostly in the U.S. that I work with directly, with peptide therapies and all that, and ask them. I say, and I think I talked to five of them, and the five of them they told me, yeah, yeah, I did. One's because of their work; they see people all day, so actually clients wouldn't see them if they were not vaccinated. You could say, yeah, but at one point, you know, you will divide the world, and in the US you don't want that because that's how you start a civil war, and the US has kind of a history of that. So
I won't use his name, but did you speak to the doctor that I introduced you to, our common friend in the U.S.? You should know what I'm talking about.
in the
I,
US,
I don't
oh
know.
no, 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 not this one.
Yeah, ask him about it.
And but those I talked to, they told me, look, they say I've treated people with the who had very bad side effect with the virus. No, it has been long enough. They have treated people with side effects of the virus. before knowing about the LL-37, there are very good therapies. It's actually the same thing. You just use more. And they say, look, we have the tools and we know how to use them. So it's not a problem anymore. So, and they have seen it. I've seen it. So the same as the virus, I'm not afraid. Actually, there was a time I did that test, the antibody test with the blood thing, and it showed up negative. And actually, I was sad. I at that time I wished I had the virus. I said, oh fuck, because once you have it, then it's over. Leave me alone. Right. So. And I mitigated that with, it's literally in my hands. I know what to do with it. Whatever happened, I can take care of it, right, and I'll be okay.
Yeah.
And we know for a fact clinically that that's how it is. Nobody ever came so far to a clinic to see a doctor and be treated with peptides and literally totally fixed at most 4 days. And I'm talking people that at that point in time, either you would take them to the emergency, put them on the respirator and the whole shebang, or start the peptide treatments. So that bad. And at most 4 days, it's like nothing happened.
Mm. This particular
from the
doctor,
virus or from the vaccine. So, I have that confidence that I'm protected as much as from the vaccine that I am from the virus than from the vaccine.
Mm.
Now, to make a political stand, see, that's another story.
Yep.
You understand?
Absolutely.
That podcast is not about political stands. I'm not about political stands. I do political stands many times. Actually, I did took position officially on my Facebook, but against things. But again, it's not. It's not the vaccine itself. It's what we talked about. So. And I think, I don't know who that person is, but to say that, I think then you fall in the other extreme of things. You have those who push for it, and then you have those who really push for not taking it. I still believe it's a personal decision, all the facts. And I think I'm well informed. I think I expressed it very well. Well informed and well protected that either I take it or not, I'm good. But it's really a personal decision. Now, if you want to start on your side to divide people by making that kind of comment, well, that's you.
Yeah. Two things. One, the physician I was mentioning to you earlier, whose name I won't use because I don't want to.
Well, I know who it is. Yeah.
Just for everybody else. So he takes 40,000 IU of vitamin D every day.
Yeah.
And everybody, please do not just go out and say, I'm going to go take 40,000. He does this, okay? This is not medical advice. I'm saying something that somebody does. He had a headache in his office. Somebody made a joke about COVID. He got tested for COVID, tested positive for COVID. Had to stay home for 2 weeks. Started taking 50,000 IU vitamin D a day. And he said, all I had was a headache. The headache lasted a day and it was gone.
Yeah.
He went home. He gave it to his wife and his children. They all got COVID. They're all on mega high doses of vitamin D. And all of them either had a little headache. One felt a little kind of run down. 24 hours was gone. And he says every single one on the high vitamin D was the case. So, and I trust this particular physician of my life. So if he tells me that's what it was, then that's what it was. There is one question in the chat. It's really beautiful woman. Her name is Angie Bossa. Oh, she's my wife, Angie Bossa. She's asking, are there any peptides that have been effective in treating long haulers' COVID symptoms, such as extreme brain fog? So someone that got COVID wound up with crazy side effects that weren't really going away. Now COVID is gone, but they got brain fog. They got.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
Would you still take the LL-37 to
No,
min
I would take actually tyrosine alpha 1, tyrosine beta 4.
both of those more so than let's say something like BPC would be the two
Yeah,
thymosis.
yeah, no, you really look more at immune system, because those two, what they do is they build up your immune system to um, fight, and TB4 to repair and anti-inflammatory.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like the go-to peptides
Gotcha.
preventively and to cure.
And both of those also just standard dose, like what is it, a milligram a day, or
No, it's high dosages in
you're
those
gonna
cases.
go up then? Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to give dosages for obvious reason. It's public thing, and I don't want the fucking
Guys, it's just it's a
Health Canada calling me. Huh?
yeah. It's difficult to overdose on most peptides. Your body will just expel what you don't use. One thing that Jean-François is very adamant about is that most people are trying to accomplish big things with healing or whatnot with minuscule amounts of peptides. They're trying to find the minimum amount, and it's not usually the way to go. You
Well,
want
if you
to.
want, let me give you the history of peptides. Peptides have been known and used for almost 30 years now, but by a subculture of people. Those biohacker back then, weird people living in their basement and trying all kind of stuff. But they have been around for such a long time. But most didn't have a really, well, there wasn't that many studies at the time and all that. So like for tyrosine beta 4, the dosage that is still generally prescribed by doctors in the US, they are doctor prescribing, is based on, listen to that, what was used in horses 20 years ago. And they didn't derogate from that dosage. And that was used for healing tendons, ligaments, and all that. Now, studies came out, and that's about 7 milligrams per week total. Now there's, and when I talk about higher dosages, people look at me like I'm crazy. And me, I tell them, whoa, do you read the studies or do you only look at the abstracts? Meaning, there is one study on TB4 that, what I said before, it's really good for post ischemia, ischemia post heart attack, and you fix it in a couple of weeks. So that's what you see, because an abstract, it's the sales pitch of the article. They don't give dosages and anything. But if you go in the study, and in that case, it was a mice study, so you convert to human dosages, and I did it, and I made a calculation. They were giving the equivalent for human of 16 milligrams per day to get that effect. So now suddenly, if I ever said 10 milligrams a day, in view of that article, it's not high dosage, it's the dosage you need for that condition.
Mm-hmm.
It's certainly not the dosage you need to heal a tendon. And it makes sense, because if you injure a tendon and you don't do anything about it, it will heal anyway by itself. If you throw in a bit of peptide, it's going to accelerate what would happen anyway. Now, if you have ischemia in the heart and you don't do anything about it, well, it's not going to get better. So, you really got to go in with the big guns, talking about higher dosages.
Mm-hmm.
And their condition, extreme neurodegenerative, we're talking even much higher dosages. So right now, the medical field in the US is very aware of peptides. They have good results, but they're still in the infancy. in terms of dosages. They didn't realize, I don't know, they don't read the articles. Most doctors, you'll see on podcasts and all that, they will cite articles, they didn't read them. Somebody, they say, okay, this is good for this, you can cite it and everything. And they kind of go, they don't, because if they would realize that the dosages they give are, to me, ridiculously low for those conditions. And clinically, because now I consult with doctors, work with them with much higher dosages, and we see it happening. It works amazingly good, but and those in that context.
Gotcha. I do have one other question. Now, the only issue is that I have somebody calling me at 8:20, which is now, and maybe they're going to be late. But when the call comes in, I absolutely have to take this call. It's very important.
Okay.
I'm going to see if I can squeeze in one last question before my phone
Okay,
rings.
very fast, and yeah.
And it was again my wife Angie was asking if the ACE2 receptors are cloaked, does this prevent any other normal physiological functions that are happening in the body?
No.
Considering that maybe ACE2 receptors are needed for other functions, if you're going to be masking
Usually
those receptors.
usually when you talk about a cloaking effect, you're not talking about, could I say, a systemic cloaking?
Is this like the Klingons in Star Trek? Are they cloaking?
Well, it's yeah, sure. No, it cloaks it to those spikes, not to everything.
Okay, just the spike specifically. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
So if it's needed for another type of molecule, I would think. I didn't look into that. That's a very good question, by the way. But I would think no, it's not gonna cloak it for everything. It's gonna.
So it's like blocking something on Facebook. They can't see what everyone else can see. No problem.
Yeah. That would be like.
See, simple analogies are always good. Jean-Francois, I thank you for your time. It's always a pleasure. We got to do another one about some of the other peptides that have come out lately. Bring us up to speed. Sounds good.
Sounds good to me.
Hopefully my little friend will have healed up and go away by then.
All right.
Cool. Thank you very much for your time, sir. Always a pleasure.
You're very welcome.